Hello again. I'd like to call the Committee of the Whole for the Village of Cary for May 20th, 2025 to order with roll call, please.
Collier.
Here.
Dudek.
Here.
McAlpine.
Here.
Stefani.
Here.
Walrath.
Here.
Persina.
Here.
Koenig.
Here, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now moving to the public comment section. The public is invited to make an issue-oriented comment on any matter of public concern not otherwise on the agenda. Is there anybody here that is not wanting to talk about Decker? Okay, or anything else on the agenda? All right, so we'll move forward with our first item is Flood Brothers to get an update on some of the service issues that we've had. I'll turn this over to Kaylin.
As the board knows, our refuse contract is through Flood Brothers, and in the fall of last year, there was some concerns about things that had happened, so we had reached out to Michael Flood, who we met with at staff level, and asked if they would come and address the board on those. Since then, we've had some other issues that we've been able to handle at a staff level, but we thought it would be a good opportunity to put a face to a name and get the Flood Brothers in front of us. So today we have Patrick Flood here with us, who is here to talk about that and address any questions from the board.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, trustees and village staff. I'm Patrick Flood, the customer service manager at Flood Brothers. My brother Michael, who works directly with the staff, had a family conflict, so he apologizes for not being here. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to provide an update on recent billing issues that impacted the Cary residents. We sincerely value our partnership with the village and take full responsibility for the errors that occurred. First, issues occurred with September through November billing. During that time, we transitioned from printing invoices internally to using an external printing and mailing vendor. Cary is unique in our municipal portfolio with a 45-day due date requiring a separate batch of invoices. Unfortunately, that batch was not printed or mailed at all by the vendor, something we only discovered after noticing an unusual increase in past due balances and customer calls to our customer services. Our initial assumption was USPS issue, but it was confirmed as a mailing failure on our vendor's end. We immediately took corrective action. We credited all late fees and returned fees from impacted customers. We implemented a new process to confirm receipt, print, timing, and mailing verification from Cary invoice moving forward. The second issue occurred during the December through February billing cycle, coinciding with an annual contract rate adjustment. Our internal oversight led to one of the several cart size offerings being billed at the old rate. As a result, March through May invoice reflected both the corrected rate and the underbilled amount from the prior quarter. We included a clear explanation in postcards mailed with March invoice, and ensured customer support was ready to answer questions. We have taken steps to prevent these issues from happening again, including enhanced quality control and review protocols, a direct confirmation process with our printer for all uniquely batched communities like Cary, improved internal cross-checks for rate updates across all cart size and service types. The June bill has been reviewed and confirmed to reflect the standard accurate quarterly rate. In closing, we deeply regret the inconvenience this caused Cary residents and staff. Our goal is to always provide exceptional, transparent service, and we thank your partnership and continued trust as we service nearly 40 communities each week.
Any comments or questions?
I have a couple quick questions. First of all, I want to say thank you for coming out and first and foremost accepting responsibility, because I think that's what everyone, whenever we make a mistake, we want to accept responsibility, so I appreciate you doing that. I'm just curiosity, what is unique about us having a 45-day cycle? What is normal? I'm just curious.
So most municipalities are 30-day
Okay.
or 20, so they get a billing date for 20 days after receipt of invoice.
Okay. So now you said that you've made changes to your system so it can accommodate that, the cycle billing.
With our third-party vendor.
Right, with
Yes,
your third-party
yes,
vendor.
yes,
Okay,
yeah.
fantastic. Well, I was just curious when you said we were unique. I mean, I know we're unique in a very good way, but I was just curious how we're unique from the billing standpoint.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Galen, you good? All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Patrick. We
Thank
appreciate you coming out.
Have a good evening.
Next, I-3 broadband right-of-way permitting agreement presentation. Galen?
Yeah, today we have I3 broadband. They reached out to us several months ago about bringing fiber optic into the right-of-way throughout the village, initially starting in one area and branching out. So we've been working with them to come up with what agreement would look like, but before we brought any sort of agreement that we would come to the board with, we wanted to bring them in front of you so that they could give a little background about themselves and the company. I'm sure Mike will go into this, but they work with surrounding towns as well, including Crystal Lake, Algonquin, Woodstock, I believe. But we have Mike Elan here who can expand on that and answer any questions that you might have.
Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. I think Nick's got a presentation up here. I'm assuming you guys can see it on the screen.
Yes.
Sorry, Alan, I shouldn't have said guys. My bad. Sorry about that. So my name is Mike Elam. I'm the Vice President of Community Relations and Market Development. I'm based down in St. Louis, so I drove up here to speak to you guys, and unfortunately, evidently, I brought the rain with me, so I apologize about that. Better days are coming. I3, next slide, is based out of Peoria, and we are, as he talked about, we're building all over the area up here. We're building in Winnebago County, McHenry County, and Lake County. We'll get into that a little bit more, but I just wanted to show you a quick little video about who I3 is, gives you an idea kind of who we are.
From Illinois to Missouri to Rhode Island, we chose these places for a reason. Each one has something special. Beautiful landscapes, vibrant cities, and hardworking, caring people. We brought our reliable and fast fiber network to you. Together, we're building something important. Our ambition is to be the best internet provider for the communities we serve. How? Through our reliable local teams, our unmatched customer experience, by delivering trusted value, and by celebrating our communities. This is a responsibility we don't just take seriously, we take it to heart. So please join us as we shout it from the rooftops. Earning our customers' trust is our #1 job. We don't fly over, we're here. Here for Peoria, St. Louis, Rockford, East Bay. Our new brand promise, i3 Broadband, here for you.
And soon we'll put Carrie on there because you are a unique community. So we'll have to put that in the video. So a little bit about us. We are based in Peoria. We started 20 years ago. We serve over 100 communities across Missouri, Illinois, and makes perfect sense that we would be in Rhode Island, right? We're all right next door to each other. We got a great job or a great offer on a cable systems up there, so we bought it, which is great because I found out Rhode Island is basically St. Louis County with half the municipalities of St. Louis County, so it's much easier to do business there. Next slide. I'll burn through this quickly because I get the idea you want to talk about Decker, so we'll do that. So when you look around here, Algonquin, Crystal Lake, Lake in the Hills, folks that we've encouraged your folks to talk to find out how are we as partners? Are we really living up to what we said that we would do? And I think you've gotten a good feedback from it. Otherwise, I don't think I'd be standing in front of you right now. But it makes sense when you look at those communities. Cary would be the next step for us to expand our services in, and that's what we're doing. So why Cary? You are a unique community, you're right. And I'm excited to work with the best public works department in the country because we work with a lot of them. So it's good to find out what the best is going to be. You just set the bar pretty high, brother, but I'm looking forward to it. You guys have a really great community. I spent today driving around your town. And you do have a lot to be very proud of. You've got a thriving business community. I can tell by the meeting that you've had here tonight so far, you've got a community who responds. So leadership that responds. So I like that. The big thing is your residents are kind of held hostage by internet options. You just don't have internet options. And that's one of the reasons why we're excited about Come Here. Right-of-way agreement, that's really the big thing of what we're here to talk about. So i3 Broadband is an internet company, but we're also a phone company. So we operate in the state of Illinois as a CLEC, a competitive local exchange carrier. Think AT&T. We're pretty much the same governing body that governs AT&T governs us. So that gives us access to right-of-way and utility easements all across the state of Illinois. That doesn't mean that we get to just walk in and do whatever we want, which I know Public Works is very cognizant of, and they will make sure that they hold our feet to the fire. But what we're hoping to do is come to an agreement with you folks. Hopefully in a couple of weeks, you will sign off on that right-of-way agreement, and we will work with the village staff to make sure that we are getting everything done and living up to the responsibility that we are supposed to. So what are we offering you? Internet is really become something that is a need these days. It's not a luxury like it used to be. And I think that really hit home during COVID. When COVID hit and we all got stuck at home, you really realized the limitations of what your current internet provider probably offered you. I try to give a little bit of context when we say symmetrical speeds. What does that really mean? That means your upload and your download speeds are the same. We're all kind of used to hearing, hey, the cable company offers you gig speed, but that's download. They don't offer you gig speed upload. And you probably found that out during COVID when you heard weird sentences like, can you turn off your video? I can't hear you. And that really speaks to the pipe that you had going back. So I like to use the example of, let's say we're going to go from here down to Chicago to a game. I don't know if your Cubs or White Sox would carry, so we're going to one of those two, right? Think of the fact that you have 10 lanes going down to the game, but when you come home, you have 1 lane. That's generally what you see in most internet providers in a cable world. With us, we're 10 lanes down, we're 10 lanes back. We give you a bigger pipe to be able to do everything that you need to do. The average household today has between 30 and 40 things connected to your internet. Think of Ring doorbells, Nest thermostats, all those type things. That's all pulling on it these days. We're here to try to make sure that you can do everything, whether you're a small business provider, whether you're at home, online education, streaming, telehealth is really going to be that next big thing that is booming. We talked about competition. That's really the big thing of what we're hoping to do, to try to make sure that you have choices, which holds everybody accountable. Your economic development people are probably the happiest people when they find out, hey, there's going to be another fiber provider in our town. That generally makes them happy. So we talked about project timeline and investment here, we are getting ready to make a multi-million-dollar investment in your community, close to $10 million that we're going to do. We're asking the city to do none of that. All we're looking for is a good working relationship with the best public works department in the country. We're excited about that part. The walkout is completed. We've got ongoing conversations that we're having with our utility partners. Next step is going to be if you folks approve our right-of-way agreement, then we will get started here in just the next few weeks, or next few months, sorry. Weeks would be great, but you guys would probably freak out if we tried to do that. So with that, I would open it up for any questions that you might have.
How do you compare, with the, like the Xfinities and the AT&Ts and that? How are you going to compare with that? Because we're kind of locked into that. And early on, many years ago, a lot of residents asked why we couldn't get WOW in here. I don't know if WOW is even still a thing, but that was a big demand. Probably 10 years ago, people wanted WOW. I haven't seen them in a while, but just kind of wondering, give us a little bit of a background on that, if you wouldn't mind.
So the big thing is we don't do contracts. So we're not going to lock you in and give you some promotional rate that says, hey, you have to stay with us for the next 2 years to get that. We're a month to month. So we have to put our money where our mouth is. If we don't do what we say we're going to do, you can drop us and go back to who you had before. We have to be competitive and we have to be good, because what we're asking you to do is drop a service that you currently have and come to us. Typically what we find when we go into a community, over the next 2 to 3 years, 50% of your residents are going to drop who they currently have and they're going to move to us because of fiber. The fiber that we're currently putting in the ground, about 18 months ago, they did a speed test. Now, granted, they juiced the laser from Japan, but they ran it all the way across the world. And they got up to 318 terabits per second. That's fast, right? We are currently offering 300, 1 gig, 2 gig, 8 gig. I don't know why you need 8 gig. Whatever you want to do with your internet, right? Mining Bitcoin in your basement, whatever you want to do, we'll give you the pipe to be able to do it. But we're going to start at prices as low as $19.99. But typically, we're going to be around $30, $40, $50 a month. 8 gigs a little different, but in those price points is generally where we're going to be. So we're going to force competition on everybody, which means where you currently don't have a promotion in your neighborhood right now, it's amazing what shows up when we put a boring machine in your front lawn and we start putting fiber in. Suddenly people become really responsive. So we're hoping to make everybody a little bit better in Cary.
And this is for businesses as well, or
It is.
local businesses? Okay.
So we've phone and internet for everybody. What other questions do you have?
Trustee Collier, you had a question? No. Stefani, no?
Quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
I know we don't have contracts or anything like that, but I would think a question that I personally would have is, how often do you typically change prices?
It depends on the
Does
market.
it change a lot? Oh, okay.
It really depends on the market. Depends on the competitors, right?
Okay.
How aggressive do they want to be? How aggressive do we need to be?
Okay.
I say there's no contracts, but I mean that businesses, there are contracts.
Makes sense, but
when
for
you do
individual
business
households.
services, that comes with a contract. Residential, there are no contracts. You're familiar with us. May I ask how? Later. Okay, good. Any other questions? I appreciate that. I left some information about us on the table and left my business card that's got my cell phone on it. If any of you have any questions, please reach out, let me know. We will be there to answer any questions that you have. So I assume you've reviewed everything with Joe, so good to know. I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you, Mike. And for the board's benefit, staff will be bringing the final negotiated agreement to the board for consideration at the next board meeting. So details to come.
Thank you. Since, you know what, would you mind if I flip-flop two of these things? These people have been sitting here about Decker for a while. Would you mind if I move Decker next and then talk about the well? Just to be more, so let's talk about Decker. Who's handling this one?
That will be me. So last summer, residents expressed concerns with speeding on Decker Drive to Public Works and the board. A traffic speed study was conducted in September 2024 to gather data. Decker Drive has a posted speed limit of 25 miles per hour. Study data indicated that on Decker Drive North, 85% of vehicles traveled at 31.6 miles per hour. The average car speed traveled at 27.4 miles per hour, and the average truck speed traveled at 36.2 miles per hour. The study indicated that on Decker Drive South, 85% of vehicles traveled at 32 miles per hour. The average car speed traveled at 28.2 miles per hour, and the average truck traveled at 26.3 miles per hour. The proposed changes, installation of pavement markings on Decker Drive as a traffic calming measure, reducing the lane width, and adding a bicycle lane for non-motorized traffic. The proposed pavement markings include one 5-foot bike lane, one 9-foot parking lane, and 2 travel lanes. The east side of Decker Drive would be designated as a no parking zone, East Main Street to Clare Lane. The speed radar signs would also be installed in 2025. Up here you can see an exhibit of what this would look like. On the left you have the parking lane, in the center you have your 2 travel lanes, and on the right you have a bike lane. There would also be posted signage indicating the bike path as well as the no parking. Some of the next steps would include updating the village code to designate the east side of Decker Drive as a no parking zone. The installation of pavement markings would take place as part of the annual CIP pavement marking program. No parking signage would be posted, as well as bike lane signage. The speed radar signs would be installed, and these have been budgeted for. And staff would collect additional traffic speed data to see if the improvements have made an impact. Any questions?
Can I? Yeah, I'll start. Decker, does that go into Montana as well? Or is
Yeah,
it just
Decker, Montana.
Decker and Montana. So this is gonna go all the way.
No, from
This would be from East Main Street to Clare Lane.
to Claire.
Just to Clare. Okay.
Any other questions?
What is the thought? What is the thought about the no parking on the one side just to create the bike lane? Is that the
This-
reason for it?
Yes, and it would help reduce any accidents and create safety.
So what would it look like if there was still parking on that side without the bike lane? Would it just narrow down both sides if there was still parking allowed on both sides?
If we had the allowed parking within the bike lane, it would obviously create that safety issue of bikes then having to go
into the
roadway.
I'm saying if there's no bike lane
Oh, if there's no bike lane,
and just
just
left
make
parking on both sides and narrowed it down how they did kind of on
well,
Cimarron.
the bike lane on that side is only 5 feet, so it would be a very narrow
Okay.
parking lane.
You need 9 foot for parking?
That the typical width of a car is like
Okay, I just was wondering. Okay.
I think the bike lane is a wonderful idea. I think it should go all the way down to 3 Oaks, because I think we should use a bike lane, period. But to me, the bike lane and speeders are, and I might be in the minority, are 2 different issues. One is for the safety of the bikers, people on a bike, and the other is to slow down or manage traffic on the roadway. So perhaps there's studies that say bike lanes slow traffic, but in my mind, I think they're 2 different issues. I am curious. I mean, I travel that road every day, and I live on a roadway where I know the people here may or may not believe it, but I know on my street, there's several of my fellow trustees that use my street to get to their home. There is no way anybody's going down my street by the posted speed limit. That is not happening. And I too get concerned about something down the road perhaps happening on Bristol Way, which is where I live. But in any event, we have a pretty flat street. Decker is not a flat street. And I'm real curious. To me, one of the solutions is a stop sign where the roadway goes down. And I don't understand why we don't have that as one of the potential things to talk about. Because to me, I don't like the idea of the parking, to be honest with you. I like the nice, wide roadway. I think Decker is a nice-looking road. The people that live on Decker do a wonderful job. If I ever meet the guy who trims his hedges, you know, just flat as could be, I'd give him a, that's you? I don't know how in the hell you do that, because the hedges are just perfect. And the woman that has the big parasol sort of thing that has beautiful flowers. My point is, parking on Decker is going to take away from what I think is a very nice-looking street with people who live on a street that take care of every one of their homes. I'm not in favor of the parking piece, and I'm curious why we didn't consider a stop sign.
Oh, sorry. So we follow the MUTCD, which is governed by the FHWA, and they specifically outline that stop signs are not to be used for monitoring speed. So we don't put stop signs in for that reason. Same way that they have children that play signs, they've taken those out because they cause sign pollution, and everybody should just always assume within a residential area that children are at play, and a sign is just, you see a sign like that, you just ignore it. So that's the reason that the FHWA would tell us not to use a stop sign to monitor that speed, which is what we're being told. And through our speed study, you know, I think Katie mentioned around 32 miles per hour is what the average 85th percentile of traffic is traveling. So that's the reason.
What is that abbreviation that you used? What entity is that that's telling you have to follow that guideline?
Federal Highway Administration. Yeah.
So within our own corporate boundaries, if we have a roadway that dips, I don't know if it's 6 feet or 12 feet, but it does dip quite a bit, and when you're at the top of the dip, I'm telling you, you all know you can get to 40 miles an hour easily if you don't even touch the gas pedal, maybe even higher. That ordinance or that guidance, you can't use the fact that you have a road that's not flat as something to combat putting in a stop sign?
I can chime in if you like,
Okay, yeah.
Director Noonan. So like Director Noonan mentioned, the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, that's the MUTCD, that does outline a lot of the things with regards to how any municipality or highway agency is allowed to install traffic control devices, whether it's pavement markings, signage, traffic signals. The rules and parameters within that manual are meant to make sure that when you're driving in Rhode Island or Illinois or Hawaii, that you have some measure of consistency with regards to driver expectation. Secondly, Director Noonan mentioned that stop signs aren't, per the MUTCD, to be used for traffic calming. And that's because, like traffic signals, stop signs also have warrants that are required to be met if you're going to install one. That's not to say that I guess a community could not install one that didn't meet warrants, but then you open yourselves up to a tremendous amount of risk and liability should something occur that shouldn't have when a traffic control device is otherwise properly installed. So that's, we do get that question, and not just in Cary, but everywhere. Stop signs, there's this misperception that that's the answer to safe driving conditions. The side effect of that is we might see this on private driveways in particular. If you go to, I won't name any names, but go to a shopping center in any suburban community, and you will often see the drive aisles are posted with stop signs, which is not really the correct way or correct use of a stop sign. You'll see them every other drive aisle. So then you get this scenario where cars are just constantly rolling the stop signs because they're not in the right spot, they're inappropriately used, and then that creates the risk factor where pedestrians who are thinking, oh, there's a stop sign here, this car is going to stop. When cars and motorists are trained and ingrained that this is kind of not in the right spot, it's inconvenient, they will roll them. And I think that's a common complaint we get in places where we do have stop signs. So the inappropriate use of stop signs, this is something, a long answer to a short question, sorry, is that's why we as a municipality, whether it's law enforcement or, as a former traffic engineer, I wouldn't recommend that we just place stop signs kind of willy-nilly. We want to make sure we're thoughtful with them. But that's why Public Works and police have worked together to kind of promote this, at least initial step towards trying to calm the traffic here in Decker. Is it the end-all answer? We'll see what the data says, but it's a first step. We've heard the feedback from the residents, and this is something that is kind of a low-hanging fruit, a more cost-effective manner to try and get those lanes narrower. It's not the parking or the bike lane that's going to calm the traffic. It's the visual friction of the narrow lanes that will hopefully help give that perception to be less comfortable to drive fast. That combined with the directed patrols that Chief Finland and his team already do, we heard Trustee Brusina and I happened to encounter a resident had a question about the topic, and his feedback was he wished there would be more directed patrols. And I understand that's something we do already, but that comment is there as well. And then the speed radar signs, again, in and of themselves, do we think those are 100% going to slow the traffic down? No. But combined with what we're proposing here, I think it's a good start. And to your comment about why not do it the whole way, I think this is just the first phase in terms of an initial step toward traffic calming. We have to be careful, though, because obviously to do this, the road's not wide enough to narrow the lanes and have parking on both sides. This stretch here has very few homes. I won't say there's none, but maybe a handful of homes that have driveways right on Decker Lane or Decker Drive. You go north of Clare. Thank you. And then you go north of Clare, there's significantly, where it turns to Montana, there's definitely more driveways that go right onto the main roadway. So limiting the parking on one side has more of a convenience effect and factor, whereas here is just a handful of homes, and then most of those homes are positioned very close to the cross street so that their guests could still park and be reasonably close to their front door.
Just for reference, Eric Morimoto is also a traffic engineer, so he speaks the language.
Formerly part of the Best Public Works Department.
Yeah.
So my question is, dollar-wise, going this route versus putting, and I understand your statements about putting in a stop sign, but what is this going to cost versus putting a stop sign in?
I don't have the exact dollar. Their striping is programmed for replacement every year by Public Works Department. So it's not we're talking $1, $2 a foot.
Right, I think our price this year is just over $1, like $1.08, $1.12 a foot.
So from an engineering perspective, if I'm hearing you correctly, there has to be more than an issue besides speeding. We'll take speeding out of it. So if you were to say, hey, on Bell and Decker, there's X amount of cars that cross there every single day, would that be is that a moot point, or is that a discussion point? I mean, have we even looked to that extent of, like, hey, we can put a stop sign there because there's just so much traffic that's intervening there?
We could have the full traffic counts done on all the cross streets, but the number of cars that are required, usually on a per hour basis and a peak hour, there's different levels of the warrants that need to be met, as well as the total cars per day on the cross street and the thoroughfare. You would have to meet those. It's our estimation, just based on the watching and observing the traffic out there. I think it's very unlikely that we would come close to meeting those volume thresholds for the cross streets in particular.
Okay. Last question, then I swear I'm done for now.
Ask as many questions as you'd like.
Is it this type of setup between the parking lane, the travel lane, and the bike lane? I thought that this was actually like changed, so it actually goes bike lane, parking lane, then travel lane. Has that changed recently? Because I've seen a lot of work that's being done outside of Cary, and that's the way that they've been doing it.
Is that what we're doing on First Street? It's parking, then bike lane?
No, I'm saying opposite. It'll go bike lane, parking, then roadway. Or maybe that's just all Chicago.
It does vary. Chicago was one of the early pioneers in bike lanes. And jump in, Kellen, sorry. I just started to answer. There's been a lot of, I think, a pivot in terms of the configuration of bike lanes where parking lanes do exist, especially in an urban environment. Traditionally, you would have seen kind of what we actually have on Georgetown right around the corner here, where you have your through lanes, you have a bike lane, and then the parking lane is between the curb and the bike lane. Mm-hmm. That was the normal standard in most places, including the city. The concern that's happened in the urban environments, though, is that with cars parked and people getting out of the cars, they swing the door open into the bike lane, and then the cyclist is having to either swerve out of the way and possibly conflict with through traffic behind them or slam into the door. So there's been a switch where sometimes the bike lanes are now put on the curb side and then the parking's on the other side. In this case, we don't have room for either. We only have room for either the bike lane or nothing because the road's not quite as wide. It's not the exact same condition we have on Cimarron or on West Main Street or Georgetown, where we were able to put parking lanes on both sides and still have room to have the through lanes in the middle. This road's just about 3 or 4 feet too narrow for that.
When we stripe, can like Decker and, what is that, Main, can we actually get a turn lane in there? Just out of curiosity.
I think it's the
Turn
same
left
width
and a turn
throughout,
right?
correct?
Yeah, I don't think we can definitely look at that, but I don't think there's enough roadway for that, width for that. We definitely something before we have them stripe, something we can look at.
Can you make mental note for Three Oaks and Montana?
That's,
Because that is a pain.
yeah, that whole intersection.
All right, I'm done.
Any questions, guys? I'd love to hear from David?
I did have a question.
Okay.
The proposed radar signs, do those simply display the speed of the driver, or is that information captured and we can continue to learn from that? I'm curious on how those signs work.
It's a great question, and actually, Chief Finland right next to me showing me the raw data as we speak. So we receive a one-year subscription through the purchase of the most recent radar signs that we got, and that all goes to a cloud base. And so we're kind of digesting what this cloud base is able to offer us, and we're able to connect existing radar signs that we already have out in the field into this system as well. So it's
No, finish up.
I'll give it Chief when I'm done. But it gives us a lot of data that we're able to use, not only for public works side, things I never even thought of that Chief brought up from the police side that they would be able to use that information for as well. So we'll get similar, like we got to take out, if you see them, the tubes that you run over, or the residents that probably saw on Decker, we're able to get that same data off of these radar signs through the web base.
What this data provides us is vehicle counts, a statistical summary in regards to speeds, hourly values, and daily values. So what it will provide the police department is a more intelligent way to deploy our personnel during those periods of time when it's more likely to have a violation in those areas. And right now, the average speed is 30 miles an hour, and 85th percentile is 34 miles per hour.
Thank you for answering that.
As a reminder, if you hear the term, we throw that around as engineers and law enforcement, 85th percentile speed, that means that's the speed that 85% of all the cars measured are going at or less. So it's not 85% of the cars are doing that speed, it's that speed or less.
Mr. Mayor, I'd have one question that I think would be benefit before we get to the public comment. If we could go back to the speeds slide that you had that showed the differences in the two locations. What criteria need to be met to have any kind of either a weight or axle restriction on the street? Because the very first thing that jumped off the screen to me, particularly on North Decker, was that the average truck speed is significantly higher than everybody else. And it immediately made me think of local deliveries only, axle control, weight control. But what kind of, going to the discussion we had about stop signs, what kind of criteria are in place to put that kind of limitations here potentially?
I believe that's more of a local decision. It's usually governed by the pavement structure itself, whether it's designed to handle the weight of the heavy trucks. Then at that point, it's more of a logistical analysis of what type of traffic needs to use that road, if it's a collector road or arterial road. Although one thing, and I think I can have Chief kind of expand upon it, we can put weight restrictions on local streets like this, but even if we do, there's still I believe the right that deliveries can be made despite the weight restriction within a certain number of miles or a certain distance from the main road that they're technically allowed to go, because we can't deny the ability for, I guess, certain deliveries that must occur. Chief.
Absolutely correct. And there used to be Class 2 truck routes that aren't really enforceable because the commercial motor vehicles do get a certain radius or a certain miles from those truck routes that are designated. However, our residential streets in Cary are restricted to 6 tons, so 12,000 pounds.
And the definition of truck in this case, Kate, I don't know if you know the parameter that's set into the traffic counters. It's not necessarily saying these are like tractor semi-trailer trucks. The definition of a truck is probably could be a 2-axle or 3-axle box
Anything
truck.
more-
as
Yeah,
well.
I would assume anything more than 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just quick question.
Absolutely.
I just, to me, one of the things that I think is the most important thing in gathering this information that we're getting, as the chief was saying, is knowing when to deploy police officers. If we know, hey, between 8 and 9 a.m., this is where we see a lot of speeding, that's a way to curb some of the concerns I would think of residents of all of us. You know, they're traveling that street, but especially the people that are living there.
Yeah, we have a finite amount of police officers on the street at any one time, and they have to be deployed throughout the village. So it's difficult to make sure that someone's at one place all the time. I will tell you anecdotally, I was in my office, and we did receive a speeding complaint on Decker Road that the assignment was made to one of our officers, and the officer answered the assignment with, "I'm already there. I was sitting on that road." So sometimes those speeding complaints and our personnel being out there aren't in sync with each other because he was on that scene already.
Well, I would like to hear from the residents because I have to be honest, I'm not 100% sure. I used to live right off of Decker and Sherwood for, 8 years. So I'm very familiar with the area. And I was only 3 houses in, so I know exactly what everyone's talking about, and I travel that road every single day as well. But I'm just not 100% sure how I feel about the changes that we're looking to make. I would like to hear from the residents and what they're thinking as well.
Agree. Let's go to we'll start at the original list. Phil Philbin. Please. I haven't seen you here in a long time. You've been behaving? I think so.
Maybe so. Again, my whole thing was I live off of Decker. I'm on Montana, Phil Philbin. I live off of Montana Court. I'm Montana Court off of Decker. So I'm not directly related to all the traffic. First thing I have to say is whoever took the data on this average speed is, I know the majority of the people drive, I think, in the 30, 25 mile an hour zone, but there's times where the traffic flow 40, 50 miles an hour up and down that street. My wife and I walk that street every day, and I can tell you, I don't mean to disagree with the police chief, but I don't see a lot of police on Decker Drive or any of the side streets going up and down that. I'm concerned about narrowing that street. I'm glad to see that we've talked about some of these things and the trustees are voicing their opinions. I'm glad to see that. 2 things. Crosswalks. People do not, when pedestrians are standing at those crosswalks, the traffic does not stop. Is that not something that should be happening in the village when people are at that crosswalk? Are traffic supposed to stop?
I find that they do stop many times.
Okay, some do, a lot of people don't.
But you know what, here's the thing though, I would say, if you're gonna have people stop on a street, then make it some sort of a sign where they have to stop.
That's exactly what I want to say.
Some people stop, some people don't, and guess what, if they think they're stopping and they don't.
You're in trouble, right. All I'm saying, I don't know if it's an ordinance that people do, but if it is, there should be signs posted. Stop at the crosswalk.
I'm going to let the chief.
Yeah, I was going to say, the Illinois Vehicle Code requires that pedestrians can't step off the curb until it's safe.
Okay.
Once they're in the crosswalk, then the motorist has to stop for a pedestrian in the crosswalk.
Okay, well, just what that gentleman did say, you're taking a 50-50 chance whether or not they're going to stop or not.
Yeah.
So, whatever. The crosswalk, not all those streets have the crosswalks going east and west. Some do, some don't. Okay? Last but not least, the parking. I don't live on the street, so I guess that's not an issue for me. I guess for the people that live there, it could be. What about the winter bans? Is parking not gonna be allowed on that street during the winter time when it snows over an inch or whatever the village requirement is? Is that gonna be stopped? Just things off the top of my head that I just would like to voice my opinion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Stephanie? Is it Schwal?
Schwal.
Oh, all right, I got that
Hi.
one. Hi, how are
Hi,
you?
everybody. This is my first village board meeting.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. My name is Stephanie Schwal. I live at 314 Pearl Street. And if you think Bristol has a lot of cross traffic, come to Pearl Street. Okay, I am the lady that calls the police chief and says, people are speeding down my road. People are speeding down Decker. I would recommend if you are going to do another survey, please come to Pearl Street. From First to Decker, people fly. I've downloaded a radar app on my phone, and I have caught people going in the 40s in front of my driveway, in the 50s, and I haven't caught anybody in the 60s yet, but, you know, I have a full-time job, so. I have 2 children. I'm a taxpayer. I own my house. I'm a mom. And all of the kids that live in Hillhurst are walkers, and they're grade schoolers. As young as kindergartners, Three Oaks offers kindergarten. My children walk, they're 8 and 10 years old, they're walkers. They have to cross 10 streets to get to school. And they are watching the cars fly by. They're walking by the radar. They have a mom that shakes her fist at all the speeders, and they're going to turn into somebody like me. We may conveniently have some basketballs that roll across the street when I hear a car coming fast. So for me, I just want to say thank you for giving attention to this issue. I don't have a major opinion on what will work and what will not. I'm open to any type of solution. So I'm just really happy that everybody's coming out and voicing their support. What I haven't heard, which I think would be a really great idea, are speed bumps. I want speed bumps. I don't care if they're temporary. I don't care if they're permanent. But I think it'd be a really great solution, not just for Decker, but for Pearl Street as well. So thank you all for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. You're welcome to come back anytime, not just for Decker. Mr. Tomasello?
Good evening. My name's Tim Tomasello, and I've been here before talking about the roads here and that. And I'm confused why they want to put this extra parking, first of all, on Decker. I've been on Decker and Bryant for 38 years. And there's very few cars that are ever parked down there, except when it's a police car or somebody delivering something. And there's only 15 homes that actually face Decker from East Main up to Montana. And why they want to put this additional parking and spending the money to do this work that to me is not needed. What they need to be doing is, first of all, putting up a couple stop signs. And the stop signs are also to help protect the kids when they try to cross the streets to coming home from school. We have 4 grandchildren, and 2 of them come to our house at least 2 days a week, sometimes 3 or 4. And a lot of times they will walk if it's warm weather, no snow or anything, and then they'll walk back to our house, and we watch them till their parents come home because they're both school teachers. So they're gone early in the morning and don't come home till later at night. But to see these people going and driving down the road, seeing the kids crossing the streets, and they don't even slow up for these kids. And if the kids have to cross over from the one side of Decker to the other, the cars are zooming by. The kids, if they don't wait, they're going to get hit by these people. So I don't understand why, for the safety of the kids, we can't have stop signs. One right on the corner of Bryan and Decker where I live, and one down the hill by Bristol Way or one of these other streets. To get these people to slow down and protect our kids, that's the most important thing. And then they're talking about a bike lane here. As far as the bike lane, I see a lot of parents riding on the sidewalks with their kids, which I have no problem with that whatsoever. But A lot of them are, you know, the parents, and then they have the kids with the 24-inch bikes or whatever, and they're going on the sidewalks. That's how I think it should be with that. I don't think you need the kids right next to these cars that are speeding at 40 and 45 miles an hour. I think it's a safety issue that everybody here should consider very strongly. We don't need the parking, we don't need to spend extra money for that. Either give us some stop signs and a speed bump or something, but to just go and do all this other stuff, 15 homes, like I said, are on Decker, that face Decker. I'm on Bryan Decker. My house faces Decker, but I have a Bryan address. And I see no need to do this additional parking whatsoever. But I do think that there is a very serious issue. You go out to California, and the cars are stopping left and right when people are by the walkways, crossing the streets and everything. Here, they just zoom right by, and the kids have to wait, and hopefully they're smart enough to wait and, you know, look to make sure a car's not coming.
Okay.
So I would much rather see no parking down there, because who's going to be using it when there's only 15 cars in that section that actually live on Decker, and normally none of them park on there. With me, I'm on Decker and Bryan, and I park on Bryan if I need to park there, and so do people that come and visit us. So I think that's a waste of money and time, and I don't think it's very productive.
I think this is what we want. We want, you know, no decisions are being made right now. We're trying to get your input. We're trying to let you know what this.
Voicing my opinion.
And we
but I think
appreciate
it's
that.
needed. And to me, that's a waste of money and time to do that.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Lincoln?
Good evening, council. Thank you guys for having everyone here tonight. Thank you, Ward and Noonan, for bringing this up and presenting it to us. So kind of for context, again, Lincoln Tumulty, I live on 324 Carl Sands Drive. I live right on the corner of Carl Sands and Decker. 18, freshly graduated from high school, so thank you for the congratulations. And, you know, I'm kind of bringing the younger side of this conversation to notice, because, yes, as a kid who's lived here since he was in 5th grade, so, you know, about 8 years now, I was a walker to Three Oaks School. I didn't have to walk to Cary Junior High, and I, by the time, had a car going to Cary Grove High School. But it's something where, as much as I love the design, I feel like parking lanes on the left side of the road, even though we're not going all the way onto Montana, all the way to Three Oaks, it does give way for blind spots, and it worries me if someone does, if a car... I know I'm bringing what ifs, and what ifs aren't always, you know, valuable motion to bring in. But if a car is parked right at a crosswalk on that left side and someone tries to walk out and a car does come by, you know, you don't know what happens. And it's just a general thought. And I wanted to, I'm a very chill person. I'm someone who, you know, watches cars go by, and I never really have thought about it. And you do bring a good point to that. A lot of people do fly through, and, you know, it's not all times of day. It could be late at night, early in the morning. You don't know the case scenario. But it's a very good point to bring up. And as someone who attests to the kids' side of things, if stop signs were available, I understand that by the Motor Association or Highway Association, I'm sorry, I don't know the exact abbreviation, that it's not possible. It just is something that would allow kids of my age to adjourn safety without having to feel like they have to jaywalk across the street and, run across the road, which, yes, does cause more danger and shouldn't be done, but, you know, there's not a lot of options for us when we don't have a lot of places to cross. And not everyone has to cross over at, it's Montana and Oak Pin lane, I believe. So this is just my opinion, and I know you guys are hearing it out for this evening, and I appreciate everyone coming out tonight. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gwynn?
Hi, Dave Gwynn, 321 Bryan Drive, Cary, where the beautiful hedges are at. Thank you very much. I appreciate you mentioning that.
You need some work done, Trustee Dudek?
I've got kind of a stream of consciousness here with some key points that I've been writing down as I've been hearing some of the discussions. So I'll try to keep it to 3 minutes, but if you'd allow me a little flexibility.
We don't have this big of a crowd here, so I'm kind of giving you a little bit more, giving people a little bit more latitude.
Okay.
We like to keep it to 3, but.
Yeah, I'll try. I'll do my best. I'm going to go through them pretty quick here. Striping. First of all, I don't think it's a bad idea. I'm not opposed to it. I would have liked to have had maybe a little bit better explanation up front as to what does the striping do? Why striping versus we're going to put striping in that's this wide on one side of the street and this striping in on the other side of the street that's this wide, parking, bike lane. Okay, why? What's the purpose? How does that help? I hope it does. I'm not opposed to that. I think people further down on Montana are already doing that, and also closer down to East Main. I think people are already parking on the street, and I don't know if it's their way of doing some self-regulation on the traffic speed. If it helps, great. Sounds like you guys just want to formalize that, which could be a good thing. Commercial trucks. I'm going to combine truck speed that you mentioned. That jumped out at me as well. Truck speed and commercial trucks. I'm not surprised by that number. I see commercial trucks flying down Decker, probably worse offenders than cars, passenger cars. We've got semis coming down Decker, and they're not going slow. They seem to think that they've got the right to go as fast as they want to go to get to where they need to be to make their delivery. I would like to see a weight limit on Decker. I think it's totally ridiculous. We've got tandem axle semi-tractors with tandem axle 40-foot trailers on the back, weighing and carrying 40,000 pounds, and the truck combined probably weighs 60 to 70,000 pounds, doing 40, 50 miles an hour. That's a disaster waiting to happen. So I think weight limits ought to be strongly considered, and I'd be more than happy to do what I can to start some sort of campaign to make that a reality. The 15%, the speed, 85% of the speed. I'm not really concerned about the 85% of the speeders. I'm more concerned about the 15% of the speeders. And I know when we did some of the first traffic studies last year, we had traffic, we had some speeders that close to 100 miles an hour. Not a lot, but several of them. And it could have been in the middle of the night. And I also, in talking with Keenan, it could have been some errors as well. Kids jumping on the lines, and it gives some sort of a erroneous reading. But if you've got traffic going close to 100, that's a problem. Patrols. I'm not sure. I'm not down where when I call in and I need a patrol car, when I see speeders, they're usually there and very responsive, and I do appreciate it. Although when I've emailed some of the neighbors asking, hey, have we seen any patrols lately? Nope, haven't seen a car lately. I don't know when they're out there. I don't know if it's at a set time, but I would say some of the heavier traffic starts at around 3 p.m., 3 to 7 p.m. with all the commuters. I would say that's a great time to look at speeders. Let's see, stop signs. I would disagree with stop signs. I'll probably make my neighbors mad at me, but I disagree with stop signs. I don't want a stop sign in front of my house. Cars are loud. A lot of them have no mufflers. I don't want to hear those cars starting and stopping. No thanks. Parking on the street, already mentioned that. It's already happening. Radar signs. I think radar signs are the best bang for your money because there's that one radar sign already on Decker as you're going, what would that be, southbound, and down at the bottom of the hill. And my house is kind of up at the top of the hill, so I can look out the window or be on the deck, and I will guarantee you 100% of the cars hit their brakes when they get to the top of that hill and they see the sign. They see the radar sign. Whoop, I'm going 50. I should be going 25. I'll slow down. We need several of those along Decker, and I think that's where you're going to get the best bang for the buck. Although striping, if striping works, I'm okay with it. Road width. We were having a little discussion back here, Rick and I and some others were having a discussion about the width of Decker versus the width of Montana. Decker appears to be a very wide road, and I think that gives people license to go as fast as they want to go because it's a nice big freeway. If the striping helps narrow that down and psychologically they slow down, cool. I'm all for it.
That's the reason they do. That's what I've been conversing him back and forth, saying we need to address these, and he's like,
yeah.
That's exactly why. You are correct.
But some of the comments I think Tim made or others have made as well, when you have cars parked on Decker and you've got little kids behind a car and they run out into the street, that concerns me. And I'm afraid that could create a whole new can of worms that could be a lot more dangerous than what we've got now.
I mean, to interrupt, but I can answer part of that right now, though. The parking, obviously, with the proposal here, we're only suggesting to put parking on the west side to narrow those lanes, to cause that visual friction, to help make it less comfortable to speed like it is on a very wide lane, wide road. Yeah. With regards to parking, though, the parking lane striping isn't meant to encourage parking. If there's very little parking occurring now, the striping is probably not going to encourage more people to park. It's just going to kind of position the vehicles on the roadway.
So it's a psychological barrier to speeding, basically.
So yeah, I don't perceive, I could be wrong, but I don't perceive more cars parking on the road because we're striping it that way now. You'll also find in traffic engineering circles that on-street parking, where there is more parking that occurs, I don't disagree with the assertion you or Lincoln made about with people walking between cars, that's not as safe a condition. But when cars do park on the street, that does the same thing that our proposed striping is intended to do. It feels more or less comfortable, to speed because you have more of a tunnel effect visually. So it's a double-edged sword, though.
Which is very. Have you driven down Cimarron at all? We've done that on Cimarron. Mm-hmm. And I believe I come here every day and I take Cimarron, and I'm on Decker almost every single day too. And I think by shrinking that up, it is psychological because it is, Cimarron's a curving road and it's a very wide road. So by shrinking it might do. Just like outside here, we've got a parking lane and a bike lane right over by Timbertown, right at the intersection of Georgetown and Cimarron. That kind of changes. There's a lane change in there. So I think it does work, but we're trying to get as much feedback as possible so we can make a decision that's best for your neighborhood.
Right. Well, striping, if it works psychologically and it's a low-cost alternative, I don't think speed bumps are an option. Stop signs, based on your feedback, Eric, doesn't sound like would be a legal option because of federal and state laws. So I think striping sounds good to me. And again, stop signs, I don't want to hear the car starting and stopping outside of my house all day and all night. No, thank you. I think I just asked about the road width. Does anybody know, can anybody answer the question real quickly? Is there a difference in width between Decker and Montana?
No.
Oh, there's not, okay. My perception was Decker was a lot wider. Maybe that's because there's so many cars parked on the side of the street down on Decker that it makes me think it's narrower down there. So, okay, that's all I've got. Thank you.
If I could say one thing about striping.
Sure.
On West Main Street, they've indicated like the fire restriction by fire hydrants and 20 feet from crosswalks. When you stripe it, you do that, and it kind of formalizes those distances, so it's easier to enforce.
Okay, that's good. Could you come back up? We're recording this, so please come up to the microphone.
One question I forgot to ask. What is the best number to call when there's a lot of speeding going on and we need patrols out there?
911?
No.
It'd be 639-2341.
639-2341?
And hit option 1, and it'll go right to our dispatch center.
Number 1.
Oh, please, non-emergency. I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
It's an emergency. Got to get these guys while they're speeding. Rick Brennan. Finally, I saved the best for almost last. I got several more here.
804 Montana Drive. I'm right across from Bristol, the pit. I've actually lived there over 40 years. I've lived there since there was no Decker. It was a cornfield. This plan here, I don't think is gonna work. I don't see it working outside here, because I drive up down here all the time. And there's no cars on there. Trucks, cars are just going into the parking lane or whatever. And want to have kids, you got Three Oaks at the end of the street. And you want kids riding bikes on the street with people doing 40? I got a 92-year-old mother-in-law that lives with me that's illegally blind. We've asked her not to cross the street to go to her other daughter's house because we're afraid she's going to get hit. And as far as police, yeah, there's a lot of police patrols. And you know where they're at? The bottom of Decker. We cannot get them to sit in Montana. We've been talking about this for a year. You know how many times I've seen them sit on Montana? Twice. They're never there. They're never there. And why you don't want to continue this all the way to Three Oaks is beyond, I can't see that. I mean, it's silly. You're not thinking of the whole street, you're thinking of one little section. There was something else and I lost it now. Oh, speed signs. The first speed sign on that street is in my yard. I'm at Bristol, I'm at Decker. I'm at the divide between the two streets. So you're halfway through that drive. And if you really don't think there's a problem, I invite every single one of you to come to my house. I'll buy a 12-pack of beer. We'll sit in the driveway in chairs, and we'll watch everyone stop right before they get to Dave's house, because they know the police chief's got someone sitting at the bottom of the street. So they'll come barreling down there at 50 miles an hour and hit the brakes. No cop, they speed up. There's a cop, 25 the rest of the way. And then once they get up to the top of the hill, coming the other direction, take off. I can't get out of my driveway. So I'm backing out, saying, hope the guy stops. And that's all I got to say.
All right, thank you very much. There is a name here that I cannot decipher. It looks like GPCHO. How about a Yell, Y-E-L-L-E? Rich Yell, Y-E-L-L-E? No, he was not. Oh, okay, because I have a different list here. Okay, Kathy? I just want to make sure that before you come up, I just want to make sure I got everybody. Is there anybody else here that would like to address the committee? We won't bite. Contrary to what the popular opinion is, yeah.
How you doing?
Hi.
It's my wife Tina. I'm Ken. We live at like Pin Oak in Montana, right on the corner. And we noticed we have a lot of kids now moving into our neighborhood. We're almost done. My son graduated. My daughters are juniors, so not too concerned about our kids. But like I'll be out there talking to my neighbors with their little kids, and people will be blowing through the stop sign over by Three Oaks. They'll be turning right and just gunning their car down Montana. I'm like, what the hell? It's 25. I mean, they're probably doing 25 before they even get to my little intersection of Pin Oak. So the speeding has kind of been, I've been here since 2005, I think, 2006, something like that. And I've noticed a huge change. And it's obvious, like, Waze is a big part of it. I know there's a lot of people that only live in Cary. They're cutting around downtown. They're flying up our road. They're going back down Three Oaks. There's been times where I'll go to Menards and whatever, and the people that were flying up that are in front of me at the stop sign, they're keep going. They're not even in Cary. They're just going around our downtown area. But anyways, with the concern is the little kids, because it's really bad. I don't know how to put it. Like, I can't even open my windows. It sounds like I live on an expressway anymore. It's not an exaggeration. I record stuff. So I was out mowing my lawn one time. I backed up on my mower, and I felt the truck just hauling right by me down Montana. I'm like, this is ridiculous. She was passed on Decker because she was doing 25 and got a dirty look and a horn. Who's passing on a side street? And your stop signs, I don't know what the organization is or whatever you're quoting, but they don't write the rules or laws, correct? They're just recommend it? Were they voted on by Congress? Like, who's passing these laws? Because then they passed a law that said that the federal government employees don't dictate laws. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know I'm not into politics, but there was something where they don't really dictate the full extent of what your town can do. They can make recommendations, correct?
They're engineering standards, but yes, they carry some weight with regards to risk and liability as well, not just performance.
Like if somebody sues because they got in an accident and we had a stop sign there.
Or creates an accident.
What about speed bumps around Three Oaks School?
Speed bumps are also a traffic calming measure that's not recommended in most municipalities.
What about around
with
school?
regards to road maintenance, especially because the plows will.
it's
You'll hear that noise at all hours of the night of a plow blade hitting that.
Well, there's like, do you know the South Side? There's Hometown, Illinois. Any idea? So, anyways, so they're between Chicago and Oak Lawn, and people used to fly through their community to get to Christ Hospital on 95th Street. And they did speed bumps and stop signs, and it's very similar to our neighborhood. I just wonder how they got the ability to do that, but we can't have any measures like that other than stripes.
Well, I hear you. A lot of lessons learned. I
Yeah.
know the village of Algonquin, our counterparts there, had a roadway of similar requests, and they installed, they pursued some grants, this is going back several years, to try different traffic calming measures, and many of them didn't work, and they were actually ultimately removed. So there's a lot of trial and error that goes on with different
Yeah, there's
applications.
speed bumps all over Chicago, where I grew up. But anyways, how many cars were in the study?
I didn't hear the question. I'm
How
sorry.
many cars?
In the actual study, like how many?
Oh, we had for the speed study, it was a week's worth of cars. I don't have the exact number. Was it about 10,000?
Is that a lot for? Is that a lot?
Let's
for-
keep the conversation this way, please.
Is that a lot for our street, our community? They have 10,000 cars a week on a roadway?
10,000 a week?
Wait, I just don't know. It just seems like the traffic has really gotten out of control.
That
Over
number.
probably the last 6 years, it's gotten worse. And it's ways, we all know what it is. People getting shortcuts around the traffic downtown,
Yeah,
especially
those,
at
sorry,
prime hours.
before your next question, those volumes are relatively consistent with a residential collector street.
Is it?
They're not too out of the ordinary, no.
Okay, so maybe it's just the speeding that's causing the
10,000 cars a
excessive noise.
day, that's a lot. A
What's
week,
that?
10,000 cars in a day, that's kind of what you're seeing on a major collector roadway like Three Oaks
So
Road.
speed bumps, stop signs, but this isn't gonna go up all the way to Montana, or is? Between Three Oaks and Maine?
Not in this current initial proposal. Again, this is the first initial stab at the traffic calming. And then obviously, if we were to continue it moving forward, like we mentioned earlier, there's so many more driveways on that section from Clare northward that we would want to make sure we considered all the unintended side effects of doing that on that stretch.
Okay.
Not to say it couldn't be done, it's just that's not the first step
Are
here.
there any new asphalt or anything put down? Like there's this sound deadening asphalt type stuff? Anything
Not
like
aware
that?
of sound deadening asphalt, but I don't think this road's programmed for resurfacing, at
No?
least in the near
Okay.
term.
I don't have much to say. I just was voicing my concern because my neighbors, a lot of them have little kids, and they've been complaining about me. And
right, thank you very much.
Traffic and stuff. So thank you.
Is there anybody else here who'd like to address the committee? Let me see if there's anybody else.
One last thing. You need a speed sign closer to Three Oaks coming southbound on Montana. There's nothing. I don't know if that's what. Okay. I don't know if it got knocked down or what. I thought there was one there years ago.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Thomas, I'll give you another shot.
I was listening to everybody talk about the stop signs and about the issues with insurance and everything else. We have stop signs all over this town. If you go down Montana, going down the hill, you come down to the stop sign there. There's a stop sign, either go left, back towards Decker, go right if you're going over the church, St. Peter and Paul's and everything. You go down the next street, there's a stop sign going left and right. And you're saying about, the insurance and the issues there. Well, I can't comprehend how we can have all these other stop signs and we can't have a stop sign on Decker because of insurance issues. To me, that makes no sense whatsoever.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I think that would be up for.
The only question I have is, if we do this plan, does that change the classification of the street from a main thoroughfare that would limit semi-traffic?
Well, this is deemed, this is a collector road. The feeder roads are all the side roads, and everything collects onto Decker to go whichever way that they want. It's a collector road.
So it's not classified as a main thoroughfare?
I don't think so.
That's what I was told originally a long time ago when I was complained about semis driving on the street, because they cut through from Lake Zurich or something, you know, on the back Wakanda, and they zip through to go over to 14.
The mayor's correct. It is a collector street. Our proposal here is a traffic calming measure. It's not a, it doesn't change the physical classification of the roadway.
So by having it narrow, we would still have semis on that street?
And like the chief mentioned, we can't prevent deliveries of, large trucks if they have to make a delivery
Not
to.
deliveries, just meant everyday traffic. I mean, everyday traffic, you get semis down.
Right, that would be a separate discussion with regards to if the village wants to voluntarily change the classification or the weight restriction. Like I mentioned before, that's usually a function of the road's construction and capacity, but there is the ability to consider that for certain cases, as long as there's no ramifications to the function of what needs to occur, like if there was a business that needed to have consistent deliveries. Not the case in your road, obviously, but it's something that the board and the village could look at, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. All right, we'll close the public comment on this right now. I'll turn it back to the committee. Let's hear your thoughts on this. Staff is looking for direction on this year's striping in order for us to move forward on this particular program that's being presented right now. There would have to be a decision made for this year. If you want to rethink this and recalibrate things, look at other calming measures, it would be postponed another year. So let's have a discussion about what you're thinking. How do you feel about integrating some of the comments that the residents have said there? I'd like to hear more about the traffic calming measures that are being presented as they are the striping. I've got my own opinion on it, but I'd like to hear what you guys have to say. Trustee Walrath, you're looking right at me, so I know you
I'll
got
go
something.
first for once instead of going last.
You're in clear vision to me. I could do that.
That's sad for me. In my free time, I decided to look up what the most effective and cost-effective and useful calming traffic measures and what we can use in neighborhood streets. And there's 12 of them that artificial intelligence will kick back to you and say, here's the most effective, et cetera, et cetera. We have 4 or 5 of those right here in this. So to kind of summarize everything that I've taken in so far tonight, it's, there are a lot of options for us, and we're choosing 3 or 4 of not only the most cost-effective, but the easiest to implement and the least intrusive that we can get in there to see if they do work. And we're not spending $150,000, $200,000 doing something radical, and then it doesn't work, to Eric's comment earlier, of the stuff they put in Algonquin, they ended up having to take back out. So I do like the idea of trying these steps forward. We certainly hear you. Everybody in town drives that road regularly. It is a commonplace. I would have to have a lot more data before I would be interested in putting a stop sign somewhere yet. I don't think it's a terrible idea, but I think that this is one of the major north-south. We don't have a ton of north-south streets. First Avenue and this is everybody on that side of 14 is using one of those two. And if you drop a stop sign right in the middle of it, there are other considerations. Safety's clearly number one, but we do have to stop and think about the other, residents that live in that area that don't necessarily live right on the street. So there is some concern there. I do like this proposal as it's put together. Like I said, looking at 3 or 4 different things, chicanes, lane narrowing, raised crosswalks help, curb extensions, which we have downtown, the bulb outs and all those curb extensions, those are traffic calming. I don't think we're interested in building mini roundabouts anywhere, so that would be one that I would not be in favor of. Your speed, radar sign, feedback signs, very effective as a deterrent. Adding more of those, I think, would be wonderful. So, to summarize for me, I like the fact we're doing multiple things in our first time out of the gate. And I am very appreciative of all the residents who have been giving us very good feedback and very constructive feedback in a non-confrontational way as we try to work forward to try to provide a safer environment for everybody over there. So from my point of view, as far as direction to staff, I'm in favor of these as they are presented.
And within this too, we are also accommodating 2 new speed detectors there. Is that correct? 2? And the other one that's out there? So they'd have 3?
The intent would be, we have 2 budgeted for this year, or we have 2 that we just received, to put those 2 out there, one in place of the existing one, and then another one opposite direction, and try and gather the data from the cloud system with the new radar speed.
Okay, so there's the 2. Perfect.
Thank you.
Trustee Pacino.
I appreciate you taking a look at that. And I would also agree, I think that this is, there are several options here that are the first in the line of many options. Nothing is set in stone today, but I'm hearing that the bike path is maybe not as desirable. That doesn't mean that pedestrians couldn't use the sidewalk still. I do like the radar signs, and I like that they would be delivering information on an ongoing basis, so we could learn maybe about when to strategically put more patrols out there. That was, I feel like almost everyone who spoke tonight said we'd like to see more police patrolling. And I do think that the psychology of this is proven to a certain extent, and I think it's I think that these measures are worth a shot. So thank you for everyone who spoke tonight as well.
Justin McKelvey?
Quick question. Can you do the striping for the parking and not do anything on the bike, or does it go in tandem? You have to do both to make it work.
I think the intent, and Eric, welcome your comments as well. I think the intent is to include the bike for the psychological purposes. We don't want to leave that lane extended wider. We want to try and narrow them to calm the traffic as much as possible.
Well, and the idea is to have something established that is going to get the result that we're looking for. I absolutely agree that this is the most cost-effective way to do it, to start off with. I'd rather do that than come up with something that's easily, if this doesn't work, it's easy to remove, so to speak. It's not going to be a costly remove if we don't find that it works. But I think in conjunction with the speed signs, having 2 of them now versus just the 1 that we have, I'm hoping that that's going to provide some quick relief and noticeable decrease in some of the speeding and the safety concerns that we have. So to me, to do nothing would be the worst thing, for us not to come up with a decision and do nothing. So I think we're coming up with the most cost-effective way to start off, see if that works, and if it doesn't, we're open to revisit it again.
Thank you. Trustee Stefani?
Agreed. Speed signs, yes. I'd be interested to find out, Chief, you said that it's all going to the cloud. That subscription, you said a lot of other feeders can kind of go into that as well. So it's just, I'm assuming, one fee, and you get all that fun jazzy stuff?
That's correct. What we've done is standardize the type of radar speed sign that we're going to use so that we can connect them all to one subscription on the cloud. But yes, they can all be on one subscription for this type of sign.
Is that live data, or is it delayed?
Yes, it's
So
as
you
live
guys-
as I can get it. I think it does a download every 5 minutes.
Okay, awesome. I would like to see this actually extended through Montana. I do feel strongly about that, as other people have stated as well. It's not just Decker that's the problem, it's also Montana too. I see it every day dropping my kids off at Three Oaks, so I'm well aware of it too. My father-in-law and mother-in-law lived on Decker. I would not let my kids play out in the front. They always had to play in the back. So yeah, I'm for seeing it actually go Decker all the way through Montana as well. So.
Thank you. Trustee Collier?
What is the cost of the electronic signs? I just feel that 2 is not enough at this point, truthfully.
I think they're close to about $3,000 a piece. So it was $6,000 that we just purchased 2 of them.
I feel 2 is not enough, but I guess we can cross that path later. Also, I did look as we were sitting here about the crosswalks. All of them are not striped. Will they all be striped as pedestrian crossings when we redo this?
We can include that in our plan.
And what about signs at those things, like pedestrian crossing, like most of them don't have signs right now, yes or no? Like a person crossing, because like you said, people don't look.
I don't
without
have
a
it.
sign, they don't look down at the pavement.
I don't know if there are, but if we put the marking, we would put the appropriate sign.
Signage with the markings.
Correct.
Thank you.
Trustee Dudek?
So my stop sign idea pretty much got killed. I had to come up with an alternative. Can we put a flashing, when the pedestrians walk out, we have them on Three Oaks Road, we have probably in a few other places, we have it on East Main too.
The button. Yep.
Yeah, the button thing. Could we put one of those kinds of things there, the flashing, flashing kind of thing?
What's the cost?
Pardon me?
And which
Somewhere on the
intersection?
street. I mean, the gentleman over here said he didn't want a stop sign by his house.
Not
I don't know
every-
the right
not
place to
every
put it.
crosswalk.
No.
Okay, just want to make sure we're clear on
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I think to Trustee Stefani's comment, and I mentioned the same thing when I commented, I think it's crazy to stop at Bristol Way and where the things split between the two streets. It really ought to be the whole street, whatever it is that we do. I would like more of a phased approach, and I don't know that that necessarily helps your budgeting, because I'm not so sure all this striping stuff's going to make a hill of beans, to be honest with you. I think the radar signs, they slow me down. When I see it, they slow me down. I think those are extremely effective. I agree with some of the fellows that said we have maybe only one speed limit sign on the street, perhaps two. Could we use another one or two, again, from the span that's East Main all the way to Three Oaks? And then I have a very pointed question for you, Chief, that addresses the truck traffic. I recall a long time ago on a previous board that we used to pull trucks aside when we thought they had too much weight. And I believe that those were mostly coming from the low property over there by the gas station. I don't know that that's such a big deal anymore for the town, but nonetheless, I remember we used to do that. I don't know if there's any particular, so does an officer have to say that truck looks heavy, I can pull them over for no particular reason? Do you have the ability to pull people over for?
Yeah, what you're talking about is Second Division Motor Vehicle Enforcement. We have some officers that are trained in that. Commercial motor vehicles, there's a whole different set of rules for commercial motor vehicles, especially those that weigh 26,001 pounds or more in regards to the type of license that an individual needs, CDL. But the other part of that equation is, just as the village administrator said, is that we can't affect commerce. So we have to allow them to make their deliveries, and it's usually a distance from a truck route. That's a truck route. And I will tell you right now, as we sit, that roadway is 6 tons. It's 12,000 pounds. That is a restricted road as it exists right now. So we could, so long as they're not making a delivery and they're not engaged in any commerce, if there's a police officer that was trained in Second Division Motor Vehicle Enforcement and saw that, he could take them to the scale and weigh them, and they would be able to be cited for violation of that weight restriction, so long as they're not, doing any business. That's the issue here. So that would mean that you'd have to follow them until they came off that roadway.
So that was going to be my next question. You can't proactively pull them aside and say where, or ask, where are you going? You have to literally follow them? to
Yeah,
see-
because you'd have to have some degree of cause to believe that they are not making a delivery. We have Amazon trucks that make deliveries all the time, but they don't violate the weight restrictions.
Okay.
But the vehicles that you're talking about, the power units are somewhere in the area of 28,000 pounds. You could have a weight limit up to in some cases 72,000. Was it 72,380 for bridging, and 80,000 pounds on interstates.
So on Decker/Montana, there is no type of truck signage we could put on there. That's what
Well, I guess we could and say that they're restricted, but currently right now Our residential streets are 6 tons, 12,000 pounds.
Okay. I think if we get more radar signs there and speed, that to me, rather than the striping, probably have a bigger impact, but that's my personal opinion.
Thank you. Well thought out. A couple of thoughts I have. I think that the speed cameras will be key. The data that we'll be able to obtain from this will help us with enforcement. The chief could look at and talk to his command staff about coinciding with some of the infractions, so to speak, on those cameras to figure out what time of day is best for them to be there, make sure that they're hitting the whole road. One of the concerns I have about, I like the idea of the striping. I think it works really well on Cimarron. It works really well on Georgetown out here. I think that psychological narrowing is a thing. The concern that I have going forward, I think one of the first things that I thought of, and in our many conversations that we have here, is why don't we do the bike path the entire length of the road? The problem with that is because of the immense number of road or the driveways that we go when we're going towards Three Oaks Road. And that would be detrimental to some of those homes. And there's a lot of cars that are parked on that street. So I think that, we're trying to nip some of these things in the bud. Everybody talks about, we take public safety very seriously here. And I don't want to minimize this by putting a cost cap on this. I want to make sure that you understand that we're trying to do everything that we can. We have a finite amount of money that we can spend on these things. And I think that we are allocating the right amount of resources for this particular project right now. I think that by looking at these things, we've got our chief, he wears many, many hats here, and we're very fortunate that he does. And we're able to make some of these decisions along with our other consultants and the world's best public works department nation's best. Okay. No, but all kidding aside, I think that we have to look at something and give this an opportunity to work. I think we have to see how it is. The additional signage, to Mr. Brennan's point about adding a couple more speed limit signs, we're painfully aware, we get a lot of people in town hate the number of signs we have throughout our community. There's people on this board that don't like the amount of signage that we have and that it gets lost. People don't pay attention. But for something like this, I think I'm willing to say that let's look at these things. And was it who had mentioned about the crosswalks? That was one of the things I said. Why don't we do more crosswalks and have all the side streets, the feeder streets, have crosswalks on them? I think that will give a little bit more of an indication that there's pedestrians going here. The kids, I see a ton of kids. I go on that road all the time. I avoid it like the plague when the school lets in and gets out. It's nuts. And we just got to be safe. That hill there's not a heck of a lot we can do with that hill going into Three Oaks from Montana. Not a lot we can do there. So I think I support what's being done here. I'd like to see the crosswalks all done. I'd like to see, in addition to the crosswalks, the signage that I've heard that would probably make we can try it, but we have to start somewhere. And we have to give this an opportunity to work. And we have the capability. It's budgeted. We've been talking about it since the fall. And I think we have to give it a shot and see how it works. Is that in agreement? Do I have a nod from everybody to put this on the next agenda to approve it?
Yes.
Okay. We can put this on the next agenda as an approved item.
So for clarity, we are moving forward as proposed, and then we'll monitor and see if additional measures are
adding
desired.
crosswalks and more signs. Striping.
So there's no money in the budget for extra speed radar signs?
Not currently.
Well, let's start with the
I'm
two.
just asking.
Let's start with the two. I'm fascinated, and I
think we
was
need
in the
more.
chief's office. We talked about this, that we will be able to gather the information more timely to make, attempts at, enforcement. Enforcement is, again, we can only be so many places at one time. And we live in the safest community in McHenry County, by the way.
Just quickly, Chief, do you think that doing the two is a good start? I mean, to me, you have the best handle on what's going on in our area.
I think that starting with the two makes perfect sense. I think that when we were talking about this at a staff level, we were concerned that, where does it stop in terms of any other areas within the village, and coming up with some type of plan and criteria so that we're not putting a radar sign on every residential street. So there's going to have to be some cost benefit analysis to determine when they work. But for right now, I think 2 will be fine, and we'll gather data, and then we'll see what we can do down in the future.
And I will add that the staff is looking into, we're getting proposals currently from our engineering consultants to develop a traffic calming program so that we can have some parameters established to help give staff some guidance and some objective parameters to point to for when and where certain types of traffic calming measures are applied. So you may see that in the near future. So we're gathering information to see if that's feasible right now in the current fiscal year.
Would you be able to get the board just a breakdown on the individual components of this? So, you know, some information that this is what a signal costs, this is what the bike path will cost, this is what the parking path will cost, the crosswalks. Because again, you know, to the points that were made constantly, we only have so many dollars. So we should pick and choose how we spend those dollars. And knowing what each one of these components cost, I think will help us make that decision.
Good idea.
Yes, we'll have staff prepare that.
I was just say, I think all this was budgeted for already, though, right?
Yes.
What's being pictured? The only thing that wasn't, I don't think, is the crosswalks.
And additional signs.
Additional signs. Thank you.
Yes, the striping was budgeted for, and then the additional speed radar sign was in the budget that we presented earlier in the year. But the rest, yeah, we would be looking at as additions.
I think we can figure out a way. All right, thank you. Great discussion. Thank you very much to the residents that come out. We appreciate your comments. We'll continue to work together. Let's monitor this together. I appreciate your professionalism, your calm demeanor of addressing us and trying to get to the best solution possible. So we're on our way. Mr. Gwynn, one more time. Please.
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank everybody. This has been about a one-year process. And it's really, you know, I think been very helpful, and you guys have listened to us, and you've come through. So I very much appreciate it, and I'm sure everybody else on Decker does too. Regarding the radar signs, I wanted to say one thing about that. It's great that we've got 2 new signs, but we've already got one sign at the bottom of the hill. It's kind of a dummy sign. It just tells you how fast you're going. You're going to stop for the street anyway. You're going to stop for East Main. I would propose putting those 2 radar signs elsewhere on Decker and Montana, where you're really going to get some better data. And you've already got the sign there anyway. Why pull one out to put 2 new smart ones in? I would say put the 2 new smart ones in elsewhere on Decker and Montana. Also, first I'd ever heard that street has a 12-ton weight limit on it. Never knew that before. And I think it needs to be enforced because we've got semis rolling fast down that street. I'm talking tandem axle, 40-foot trailers. I think that needs to be enforced, and signs need to be put up to say this is not a truck route. Yeah, and that's it. So again, thank you all very much.
Thank you. Moving on, Well 14 project update. Katie, you got this?
I do. In 2021, well number 8 and 9 were taken offline. It was determined that a new deep well could be constructed in the northwest corner of Rotary Park that could make up for the capacity lost by the decommissioning of wells number 8 and 9. Installation of that new well would create a water system resiliency by creating redundant water sources. Since 2021, HR Green has been under contract, designing the new well and water treatment facility, as well as designing a redundant water main within the south system. Staff worked on easement acquisition to provide electrical power to the site as well. There are 3 funding sources for this project. 1 low interest rate IEPA loan, approximately $5.1 million up to, as well as a 100% forgiveness IEPA loan up to $7.2 million, and an advanced McHenry County ARPA grant for $560,000. Some of the features include paving a portion of the parking lot headed north towards the new building, as well as some public amenities at that new building, which include restrooms and a water fountain bottle filling station. There's also going to be a temporary construction access route that goes from Route 31 to the construction site, which I'll show you on an exhibit at a later slide. On this slide, we're looking at elevations of each side of that new building, which was designed to be consistent with the existing structure at Rotary Park. This is a location map of the area. In the upper northwest corner, that blue highlighted section is where the construction site is going to be for that new well. That red dashed line is going to be the construction route going from Route 31 to the construction site. And that yellow line is showing the section of path that is going to be paved from the parking lot. The schedule includes design engineering, which was done from July 2023 through this May. We're currently at the construction contract out to bid phase. It was put out to bid on April 4th, and bids are being opened this Thursday, the 22nd. We anticipate request for board approval for the construction contract in June, and the construction would take place approximately fall 2025 through spring 2027. And at this time, if you have any questions.
Can you go back to the funding slide, please?
Yes.
I remember, how do I phrase this without being, do you know what I'm going to ask? The funding from Congresswoman Schakowsky?
Yes, so we submitted for that, January of 2024, I believe, and they did not award anything to anybody. So I actually received a call from Congresswoman Schakowsky's office recently. They're hoping to resubmit our project for the upcoming, and we hope to hear maybe July.
Okay, perfect. Just want to make sure that it's still on our, because she was super excited about that project, so I'm hoping that, well, I know she's retiring, I guess, next year, but if we can get her to jump on board, that was something that she was very excited about.
Yeah.
No, there was she was earmarking, for the lack of another word, it was several $1 million.
We requested 5.
And then she said that she would put in for the 5, but she wasn't guaranteeing 5. So, but this is the exact intent for that funding, exactly what they're looking for. It checked all those boxes.
If I can, I just want to highlight that we have the 7.295 with 100% loan forgiveness. So it's basically, they call it a loan, but it's basically a grant. So depending on where the bids come in on Thursday, we have up to that 5.1 in a low interest loan that we can get through the EPA.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Great news. I'm excited about this, and the fact that we can pave part of Cary Lake. Yeah, that's awesome. Now we got to find, Kaylin, you got to find the money to pave the rest. Okay.
Leave it to the best department.
I was just going to say, aren't you the best public works director in the nation? Okay. I will entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session to discuss litigation pending or imminent, 5 Illinois CS 120/2C11.
So moved.
Second.
And we will be adjourning this meeting from executive session, so that concludes our public portion of the meeting.
But you want to say all in favor?
Yeah.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We will adjourn into executive session.
Yeah.